Whoa, is this a video I'm gonna put some fucking effort into, and then it's gonna end up just about as the rest of them? Absolutely. But we're gonna hit something preemptively. Might be one of those corny ass like this movie changed my life. But fuck you, it's my favorite movie, and it gives me what I feel representation, and I really want to talk about the characters, but we go by literature, so fucking rising action, climax, falling action, it'll be second to last. Alright, but let's hit the intro. Let's talk about the setting. It's a realistic fiction set in New Jersey, right? And that feels like very vital to the characters. The place is embedded in the characters with how they act, how they talk, how they move. And they do cut to, the city, New York City, but it's to show the scope of how limited what they can do is from being in poverty, right? You see his house, it's very small. The basement, sort of sets as another room, and they use these like very tight, close feeling um interior shots of the house. And then they will and then when you see them contrast that with them going to like the vape bar in the city or them taking the train, it shows you how large the area is. And I feel like the interior spaces and the city itself even plays into the characters' relationships. Boom, I'm fucking great at fucking segues. Let's go. Now, a relationship, this is some fucking rising action, right? All relationships center around the main character. Because the viewer isn't supposed to be some like omniscient narrator. It's supposed to be realistic, right? The music is used sparingly. Um, and you really only see one character and how they interact with everyone else, right? And this really helps to show like the dynamic emotions of the main character, right? Like when you see him with his friends. Well, okay, hold on. It shows the dynamic emotions without having to use a lot of dialogue. It leaves off the thing like show, not tell. And that's really really cool to me, right? It makes the movie feel more realistic. People aren't constantly talking, despite the irony of me saying this when I've been talking for like the last hour and a half into a camera. But yeah, like you get to see his relationships. Like you see where he has to like restrain himself with his friends. You can see his like nervousness when he is going and trying to, explore his sexuality. You can see his the the difficulty that he has with his family, which really makes it so he's no one to talk to, which I think helps to the mood. It helps to portray, uh, his emotions. You can see that his sister doesn't trust him anymore. You don't know what happened, but there was something between them. The mother, um, I, how I read the movie. This is definitely an art movie. It's one of those things where you can read into it probably a lot of different ways. But I saw like the movie. I saw the scenes with him and his mother, and then the cutaway is them implying, sexual abuse. I can't remember the word, so I'm just going to say it exemplifies his isolation and the fact that he can't turn to anyone because even his friends, um, he can't be himself around them. They have the toxic masculinity that has been put in. That sounds, I don't mean this in a corny way, right? But I don't know what else to put. There are societal standards that men follow that ends up being very negative. And I think the word toxic masculinity has had the same issue as like racist in the more recent years, where it's starting to like lose meaning. Where it's like, yeah, there are toxic masculinity and racism are very real. But when you start saying that about everything, it sort of loses meaning. Uh, but back to the point, they do exhibit a fucking toxic masculinity. They exhibit that ghetto pure strain of toxic masculinity, And I'm not like saying this because like every all the main characters in the movie are white, right? They're white trash for No, fuck it. They're white trash. There is a better term, but I don't give a shit. They're white trash. I'm white trash. It's fine, right? And because of that ghetto white trash talks masculinity, you can't show emotions. And they show him struggling even alone, shows emotions, which is very real, as well as incredible homophobia seen in the group. And that's not directly stated, it's implied until the end of the movie, where they jump a gay dude. But I didn't think of anything else for relationships. So now we get to go to my fucking favorite part of this, discussing. I lied. We're not on climax yet. Something to stand up. Uh, but uh, one more relationship we have to talk about is him with his girl, right? And he is cheating on her through the whole movie. Uh, but even though he's like cheating sexually, he starts to rely on her so heavily for emotional support. Even though he doesn't, even if he doesn't really talk to her directly about his emotions, he feels good. So then when she breaks up with him, he no longer has anyone to go to. So he starts to break down. He starts to have, he just he doesn't go crazy, right? But it's realistic. He starts doing more reckless shit, and that's when it leads, and that's honestly what drives him to rob the gay dude who looked like he actually wanted a relationship with him. You know, they him and his friends beat that motherfucker's ass, and they stole his fucking weed. Now we get to this movie's specialty, the fucking character, right? The character. And I say character because, like I said, there's characters, but it really heavily focuses on the main character. And you get to learn so much about him in this short runtime because it's not a 3 hour movie. I think it's like an hour and a half, maybe two, somewhere in there. But you really feel like you get to know him because when they show when they have these like really close up shots of him in his room trying to, process, trying to deal with it, whether it be him trying to, deny his sexuality and that's effect on him. You see it. You don't hear it, you see it. And that is more realistic, right? Because truthfully, we don't really know anybody, right? We don't know everything about them. So when you have to infer a lot, it does give a much more realistic and personal. It builds a much more realistic and personal attachment. And I'm realizing I'm talking a lot slower in this section, like sitting down calming, but this is important, and it also leads into violent action. So I want to talk about it. So I want to be a little more serious, take some more time to think, because like how I write these, I have a very rough script, and then I just kind of go off the top of my head based on that script, and that's what I'm doing here. So and that was mainly just to fill time, so I wasn't silent the whole time. But yeah, no, it to me it doesn't even only build an attachment to the character; it builds an attachment to the movie, right? Because you feel by the end like you know the area, you know the fare, because they keep using similar locations, and by the end of it, you start to feel the monotony of living in a small. I don't know why I did that in a small poor area, right? So you get to feel like not you get to see not only how he processes emotions, his emotions, but you get to see like the monotony he feels in his life, the small things that he's like willing to do, him the shame that he feels about himself. You get to see all that. You understand it through his actions and them really I don't want to say they drilled into you because or hammered into you because it never feels overpowering, but that's what they do that. They continually repeat the cycle. All right, so now we're here for following action and conclusion, right? And we're going to talk about a person. They're going to give it the concession here and why I like this movie so much, right? This to me feels like representation. Well, I didn't grow up in Jersey. I did grow up in. I grew up in the high desert, and it's as white trash, right? I mean, most of my friends were Mexican and black. They weren't white, but they did still have that same type of toxic masculinity. So I had to take a long time of like hating myself, denying it to figure out, like what am I? And then until I had to come to the point where I'm like, it it doesn't matter to me, right? Like this is how I see it. I'm a very like logic based dude. I don't know and I don't care enough to look. I just know I don't only like women. But if I wake up, hi Beatrice, if I wake up next to a dude, nothing changes besides the fact that I'm single, right? It doesn't matter. But that took me a long time to get to it. Took a lot of like internal battling, and it did cause a lot of mental stress, right? And I didn't see anything, like that in media before until right now, you know. And I think representation's really important, and I think especially showing that people in the LGBTQ aren't, one faceted, they aren't, they have dynamic personalities. And I think especially gay men go through a lot of stigmas, and they bring those stigmas up in the movie. Or any guy in the LGBTQ, not just gay. Like they bring up one of the lines when he's talking with this girl is, uh, he asks, "Hey, have you ever kissed a girl before?" And she goes, "Why do you want to know?" And there's a whole thing. And she goes, "Yeah, I have." And then he goes, "Well, what if two guys make out?" And he goes, "That's gay." And she's like, and he goes, "What?" It's like, yeah, when two girls make out, it's hot. When two guys make out, it's just gay. And that is scuffed, but that is a very real belief. And if you don't believe that that's true, you're just kind of blind. I got to be real with you, but because um, and it really just shows these emotions, and I think that's really important to put out there for. And I hope that that trend continues. And I'm very glad that I finished this fucking video because now I can do research on the director and what the intention was. But I really wanted to analyze it myself first before I see what the intention is. Um, but this shit's done. So fuck you.